Should you live at home to save money? Now, I've got a controversial take here, and I'm going to give you the take of somebody that's been, successful both in my career as a W-2 employee, as an engineer, as a consultant, and somebody that's been successful as an entrepreneur, running businesses over the years. I'm about 10 years into running businesses. I've had multiple businesses with different varying levels of success, and I'm going to give you the opinion of somebody that's had, let's say, marginal success in the society at a relatively young age relative to my peers. Not that I'm super successful, but I'm doing all right in life, about living at home and whether it actually makes sense to live at home to save money. Now, I know this video is a little bit different for the channel, but I know a lot of people are in that kind of means and methods of, do you go out and make more money? Is it possible to make more money? Your costs and the cost of living is getting so high. What do you do? And sometimes the option of living at home to save money is, a very real option. And, let me caveat here. If you're in a situation where you can't find a place to live, yeah, live at home because that's a safe thing. But if you're in a place where you can cover your living costs and you're trying to make a cost analysis benefit of whether or not living at home for a short period of time or a long period of time makes financial sense for you, that's what we're really gonna talk about. So if you're in a situation where you're gonna be homeless, I just wanna say that up front, go live at home, right? Don't become homeless, right? Here's my controversial opinion. If you're thinking about living at home to save money and better your situation or whatever it is, don't do it, right? It's one thing to be 18, 19 living at home, but if you're outside of college ages, you should not live at home to save money. And I'm gonna be very clear, and I'm even talking about areas that are high cost of living. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, which is quite literally this year the most expensive place in the United States to live. The cost to feel like you're secure here, or the amount that you need to make to feel secure or live comfortably, is higher than any other city in the United States. So I can say a thing or two, especially in high cost of living areas. But the reason that you shouldn't live at home is actually not necessarily financial, it's psychological. And the reason that that psychological kind of impact, and more so what that psychological impact has on your larger, longer term earnings. So a lot of people think short term and they think about saving money. But the reality is, when you actually do the math of life, right, a lot of it comes to earnings. There is a big difference in the long-term trajectory of somebody that makes $50,000 a year and somebody that makes $100,000 a year, right? And then when you go even further and you're like, okay, $50,000 a year, but they're cutting corners and saving where they can, or $100,000 a year and they're marginally saving and being a little bit smart with their money, there's still a massive difference in long-term trajectory. The person making $100,000 is going to do significantly better and live much more comfortably. Now, here's where the fallacy comes in. If you live at home and you have that security, for most Americans, that means that you don't have the fire under your butt to go out and do more and earn more. And that is a critical statement. Now, a lot of you guys that are watching this video that are maybe considering this are gonna say, I'm not in that boat. You are, because you're considering living at home. If the fire was under you, you would just go make more money. And I know a lot of people are like, well, how is that possible? How do I make more money? If you don't want to be entrepreneurial, work more. Work 2 jobs. Plenty of Americans do it. I did it for a long time, and I did it when one of my jobs was still paying me near 6 figures when I got out of college. I was working 3 jobs at one point because I wanted to get ahead. I bought a house in the Boston area at the age of 23, right? It's effort, and it's time, and it's effort, right? And if you have the fire under you to put the time and effort into it, you're gonna be more successful. Making more money is gonna have a lot more impact than saving a little bit of money. Now, living at home, it might sound like you save a lot of money, but you have all these opportunity costs, like, missing time out with your friends or not being able to have gatherings in your own space with your friends and things like that, where the kind of the way that you adjust for them is actually spending more money. And there have been a fair amount of studies that aren't super comprehensive because it's not something that we look at too much, but there have been some smaller scale studies that we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people, obviously, but that look at 500 to 1,000 people, and their spending is radically higher when they're living at home because their perceived savings and how they have more money makes it a little bit more, it creates more security and they spend a little bit more where somebody wouldn't otherwise do that, even if they have more security and they're making more money. So the answer is don't live at home, bust your butt to make more money. It's that simple. You can do entrepreneurial things, you can start a YouTube channel. Those are probably bad examples because they take a lot of effort and there's risk involved and you really have to outwork the competition. But what you could do is you could do something like pick up some more hours at your job. You could pick up some hours at another job. You could referee soccer. You could do all these other things that have really great hourly rates that maybe work on the weekends where you can make a lot of money. I use refereeing soccer as a great example because from the age of when I was at 15, maybe 15 and a half, I was making an extra between, especially even in high school, I was making between $20,000 and $40,000 a year. And then even after high school, I maybe got up to 40 or 50,000 in college, and then even after college, I was still making an extra like 30 or 40 grand just working weekends, refereeing soccer, right? It's cash on the field most of the time, and it's really good money. So you can do a little bit of that. That's going to make you some extra money. It's not that hard to make 100 grand in the US in today's day and age, regardless of where you live. You just have to work more, right? And you know, let's say you're working and you make 40 grand a year, just go get another job and bust your butt, right? You're going to be probably just as uncomfortable living at home as working, you know, twice as many hours. But the reality is you're going to get more work experience, more life experience, more of a fire. It's going to get more motivating, right? If you work 2 jobs, you're going to be more motivated to do something that breaks the norm, like being entrepreneurial, investing, whatever it is, because you realize the value of what it actually takes to get money and to generate that income, right? And it's just going to help you in a multitude of ways. So there's a little bit of psychology here, and it's a lot about effort, right? But if you fall into the trap of it being safe and it being okay, you're going to fall into the trap of a lot of people where they start living at home and years go by and they realize that what they were saving for has never come to fruition, right? If you save, you know, like if you want to do the exact math, like let's say you live somewhere where rent is $1,000, good example, right? That means you really need to make an extra, let's say $20,000, not even that, $18,000 after taxes to make the difference. So you either save, you either live at home, or you make an extra $18,000, right? Well, here's the thing, right? Making an extra $18,000, if you're already getting to that point, it's easier to make $20,000 or $30,000 because you've created this kind of like spectrum of income, right? Most of the time, I'm talking about doing things like that are going to pay you 20 or 30 bucks an hour because there are part-time things that you can do that. It's not that hard to find those kinds of side hustles. And if you are saying to yourself, McDonald's doesn't pay that much, go do something that's a little more entrepreneurial. Make something and sell it at a farmer's market. You'll make 20 or 30 bucks an hour, like pretty much guaranteed. As long as you do put in the effort and do it all right, you'll make that money. With that said, if you're saving 12 grand a year, when you think about the difference in cost of living and inflation and the difference of what that does overall in your life, right, is going to be a vast difference. You can take one step further that if you make the money and you're paying rent, you have a different tax situation as well. So maybe you don't file itemized anymore because you're taking the tax advantage for paying someone rent versus if you're living at home, you don't have anything, right? So maybe you're paying more in taxes. There's a multitude of things here. We can kind of take a stab at every situation, but mathematically, more often than not, living at home isn't going to give you the answer. Even in the niche situations where, like, you know, in the Boston market where a 1-bedroom could be like $2,000, $2,500, right? For a not so great 1-bedroom, living at home could save you a lot of money. And that's the only time where you start getting into this kind of relative conundrum. But you're probably better off just doing the whole roommate thing and figuring it out, right? There are ways to get around it and just go make more money because you're going to make more money in a high cost of living area. So the math is always there, but don't fall to the psychological trap and find that 3 or 4 years of your life has kind of passed by and you've made these social sacrifices of living at home, and those social sacrifices actually impacted you financially more than you actually thought. That being said, there is this like golden rule of thumb that once you've made your first $100,000 in a year, it's easier to make $100,000 every single year after that because you understand how to do it. You understand the effort that's involved. You understand the system a little bit more and how that all works. You've also created some, you know, mental stability around generating income. So I always like to tell people, if anyone asks me for advice ever, I always just say, make your first $100,000 in a year, right? Even if it means like absolutely busting, right? Just going all out, working 3 jobs, make the 100 grand. And then next year, whether it's you doing that exact same process again to make another 100 grand or realizing, holy moly, that was way too much work. I need to sit down at a table and figure out how to recreate what I just did, but do it in a way where I up my hourly rate or I do something entrepreneurial that gets me there in a more efficient way. That's going to start what you need to start now to get you to where you want to be later. The average person watching this video is never going to retire. And if you take a small subset of people that are going to retire, you're going to retire at like 60 plus years old, right? And I can promise you, if you're watching this video, maybe a few of you are not going to be in that mold, right? They are actually going to retire early or whatever you want to do or hit financial freedom, right? But the majority of you are not, because you're not doing the effort. You're not putting the effort in. You're not actually doing, right? And that's the most important thing. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something here. Hopefully you don't hate me for my controversial take, and I'll see you guys in the next video.